And the reason is I blame my partner in life because he leaves like twice a year to do camping or glamping. Camping is a loose term for these people, with his friends. And every single time. So one time, no, I shouldn't say every single time, just in my memory, this is what happens. One time the basement wall starts like literally leaking during a storm. Right. And now we rent. So eventually the land, but I'm home alone and the wall is like flooding the basement. You know what I mean? Another time, the whole toilet just backed up and it ended up being a tree in the yard. Again, not our fault, but like just somehow the tree did something to the pipe in the yard and yada. This morning, the toilet won't stop running. So like I have the top off the back of the toilet and the little thing in the back, I have to fix it every time you use the bathroom. And I'm sitting here like, I am so sick of water being a problem in my life. Right. And I know that like consciously, I know that the back of the toilet is the clean water, but there's still a level you're sticking your hand in the toilet and there's still something wrong with it. Anyways, that's why I was late this morning getting everything set up, was because the stupid toilet. I got all the way down to the basement and I could still hear it running. And I'm like, I gotta go fix it. All right. Anyways.
Well, and when you have those sounds, right? Like you can't just focus when you have sounds like that. And also, I mean, I don't care what part of the toilet it is, you're still touching all the parts when you got to get into one of the parts. So
right, exactly. So like even like putting your hands somewhere else on the toilet to like look in or like do something, you're just like you think of those bad stories where like like the toilet, whenever it flushes, spits water into the air, and the average toothbrush that shares the toilet bathroom has feces on it. Yeah. And it's like, ugh. I'm so lucky at this house. Like the sink is outside the bathroom where we put our toothbrush holder. So I'm actually lucky that way.
Yeah, I'm always a cabinet person.
You're a cabinet
always
person?
Make sure it's in the cabinet.
Yes. Then no feces will get on your toothbrush.
Nope. I am very stickler for that too. But I mean, that's because we grew up, watching the who are the guys. We watched the two guys that did all the things. Why can't I think of them?
And I can't think of their name. But yeah, they would do the testing of things. Like, is that real? The Mythbusters.
Mythbusters, there we go.
Yeah, but what were their names?
I can't
think of it. Somebody will tell us. Dom will watch later and let us know. Oh, are you going to Google it?
Yep. It is Peter Rees. Oh, wow. It says created by Peter Rees, but doesn't give me the people.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't know their names anyways at this point. But yeah, remember they would be like, they would test all the things that we thought we wanted to know. Yeah. And some things we didn't. But that's okay.
It was on Discovery Channel. Adam and Jamie. There we go.
Okay.
Adam Savage and Jamie Hyneman.
So great.
Now we know Mythbusters. But
and knowing is half the battle. So okay.
Exactly.
And
with that being said, Sarah, you gave us a what's your day look like, right? And that leads right into what our topic is, which is how much do you share with people? Because you did a really good I wanted to say subreddit, and that is not right. Substack.
Yes. Subreddit is a completely different thing. You should go check those out too. But yeah, it's when do you share things? And by the way, this Substack isn't until tomorrow. Okay. I think so. Anyway, but it doesn't matter. The amount of people that'll watch this today, I'm not giving you any like inside baseball into my Substack. But so when people ask me how I am, right? You're on a call, you're meeting somebody, maybe not for the first time, but maybe then like, how's your day going? Or you're even meeting somebody like they're an acquaintance online, not a person you know. If they ask me how I am, my first reaction is no major complaints on my end. How are you? because that's validly true, right? I got on this call, complained a little bit about the toilet upstairs and, different things. But really and truly, that's a first world problem. There are no major complaints. I have a toilet that works. I just got to jiggle something. And, there's a third of the world that doesn't even have that. Okay. And I get that. So in my mind, my problems are not that big. So I think people don't want to know about them.
Yeah, and I think that there is a different level to that, right? Because I know like a while back we were talking about a little bit about my mental health and about the stuff that I've been struggling with. And, through our conversations, I know on a daily basis you go through things that are a lot, right? And I know that most people don't know that, and it's not a comparison, or it's not a like, but your like my level of like my 8 is something that you've turned into your 4, right? And so when you say you have nothing to complain about, that's because you might be living at a 4, which is somebody else's 8. And I think that that understanding in the world, because we do downplay what are we going through and how our day is, it gets lost because people
Sure.
aren't fully aware of where are you staying. You have you help support a autistic child, and
Sure.
I know a few people who help support autistic children, and all of those levels are different levels, right? Different attention, different things. And when you say, oh yeah, nothing to complain about, but I had all of these things with my autistic child, right? Or I had my kid's moving out, and I got
Yeah.
to figure out all the things that he needs for his apartment, right? And so when we downplay those things, other people don't have relatable stories. Um,
Yeah, and I agree. And I do have to say, like, there is a barrier in my head that is probably not valid. And just so you know, we all have barriers in our head that we put up because we think someone else is feeling a way, or we think people will react away. So I do know that this next story is kind of like that. But let's go with you know Brittany comes, onto a call and she's like, yeah, you know what? A dog threw me off my bike and I ruined my knee. Okay. So just so you guys know, this happened. So we're just going to leave that go for another time if you don't know that story. But if I'm like, oh, wow, that's a crazy story, here's mine, I feel like I'm one upping. Does that make sense? Like, or dismissing your problem. And I never want somebody to feel like that. And a lot of times, especially when I've talked about my health, or even like, because that's a bad situation, right? But even if I talk about a good situation, like I avoid talking about getting a doctorate and doing my dissertation, because I know that there are other people that either can't afford to do it, can't afford the time to do it, don't feel like they have the capacity to do it. And by me talking about it, am I making them feel bad?
yeah,
And this is my own barrier. Am I making sense? 100%. I know that on a conscious level, but we're not talking a conscious level. We're talking that little in the back of your head.
I actually had that exact conversation yesterday. We know I moved to the middle of somewhere, and I'm, working on making friends.
You can generically say I moved to the middle of
I moved
Louisiana and
to
not give people your address. It's
Well,
okay.
no, but I mean, like, once I got here, I was like, where am I? I'm in
Well,
Shreveport. So if anybody knows what Shreveport is, it's questionable.
but when you've lived in Denver or Chicago, right? Like Shreveport is like, what are you? Like it
Yeah.
was like Lansing for me. I lived in Lansing, Michigan for a while. And I look back and I'm just like, I don't know if I could live there again. Anyways, go ahead.
Where am I? And I have managed to make some very great, very valid connections. And
Sure.
one of the people I was talking to yesterday is becoming a really great, amazing close friend of mine. And they had mentioned that like our level of ADHD, where you say a story and then somebody else is like, oh, I can relate, let me tell you that story. We go back and forth with that because that's where our level of ADHD is. And so we're comfortable with that. But if we were talking to other people, we would have that hold back, like you're talking about, of I don't want to up you, I don't want to take away from you. And, I think because I have that level of ADHD, it enhances the story and it creates relatability. But I also do agree with the idea of there are times where it's, this is somebody's wedding and we're talking about a wedding, right? There's those times, but I think in that conversation of how are you, what's going on in your world, and we have amazing people who we have met online and talked
Sure.
to week after week after week. And, after about week 2, week 3, month 2, month 3, we're becoming really good friends. And so, yeah, when you're first meeting somebody, you have a generic, my day was, I have an autistic kid, I have this, I have that. So it was a little bit hectic, but it was great. And then once you've known them for a while, you can say, well, they threw all the toilet paper in the toilet today. Right? the, the story
Or
now.
or she ate 20 cheese sticks and we're wondering when she'll poop next.
Yep,
TMI probably, but just so you know, that's happened.
exactly. And so the story does grow the longer you know
Mhm.
somebody. But if you don't allow the story to grow, then you're holding back that relationship in some kind of way. But also, they might give you that hold back, right? They might just be, we're strictly business people.
Sure, and I think that's where I'm at, because like, okay, if I'm here, I'm literally in a sense telling the world there's 2 people watching and maybe 20 people will watch this total, but anybody can find these videos, and I have no problem telling people things about myself, right? It's more along the lines of when, right? When do you scare somebody with the Sarah's never drank alcohol? Because the first thing that happens, I have to premise it with, by the way, I'm not an alcoholic, which I was going to say there's nothing wrong with being an alcoholic. There is. Don't be one. But if you're a recovering alcoholic, there's nothing wrong with that. You've made that change in your life. But when do you say those things? Like, when do you bring up topics? When do I tell somebody? Like, there's very few people, and we're not going to get into those details if somebody ever wants to know, but Brittany knows. And there are times that I'm like, okay, Brittany, today is not a good day. Sarah does not feel well. Sarah is not doing anything today, let alone get on a call. And at this point, Brittany's like, okay, right? She doesn't ask like, well, tell me all the nitty gritty details, right? If I want to, I'll tell her that. But then there's other people that it's like, once I tell them I have physical limitations, it's like, are you okay today? Are you okay today? Are you okay to have this meeting? Can you do that? Should you be eating that? I've had people ask me that. It's like, this is me, right? Like, don't like, so I
I've
think
done
there's
40. I got this.
right. And so I think it's the when, right? When we, especially networking online, when do we open up to somebody, right? When is the proper time? Do we wait for them to open up? Or do we, um, you know, do we open up first and hope that they accept it? Do we not care if they accept? And I don't think we're going to have the answer today. That's not the point. You know what I'm saying? But, what do you think on that? Like, is there a timeline?
I definitely think that there is. I think that it always depends on the person. You and I, we got on a call, we meshed well, and we go live all the time, right?
Right.
And I think that it really does depend on how people interact with you and what their give back is. Are they taking out of the relationship or are they giving into the relationship, right? Like, is there that ebb and flow? And it takes time to find that trust, and but also we have to be open and willing to trust, right? And you and I, we're doing this, and we started this in a different capacity with different people that we thought was going to be a whole grandiose
This has had like
thing.
probably 4 iterations if you count the original Rolodex, because we did a Rolodex once a week. You were doing them with a couple other people. But if you even go back that far, this has probably had 4 or 5 iterations.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but you and I stay the same. You and I, we're ebb and flowing with things that are around us because we're trusting ideas, and we're moving through those ideas. And one of the ideas we thought was going to be grandiose, and we were doing it with other people, and we were like, okay, we gotta go back to just us, right? And so
we can have guests. I'm not like diminishing guests.
Yeah, no, come visit.
We're not ready for third host.
No, we're not ready for third host or being hosted on other people's stuff. That's
right.
The spaces, right? And so when you look at that, though, that becomes that idea of how are you willing to, trial and error, right? And that's the same with people. You can tell somebody something early, and they might show you some colors, and you're like, oh, right? Or they might just mesh well, and it might blend well, and you might just be able to go through that way. But I think in this world, it's always a thing. But understanding that we're making business connections most often, unless you're on a dating app, right? If you're on a dating app, that's a different conversation. But when you're doing business and you're networking, that's your baseline. We start with professionalism. We start with, yeah, it's been a great day. I've got most of my tasks done, or I'm struggling with some of my tasks, but it's a business conversation. And then you might bring up, yeah, I have some kids around, or my kids are all grown and I just send them money now, So you look at where that is. But I think I had this conversation yesterday too. You have to find your baseline.
Sure.
Where is your safety net? Where is your baseline? And like you said, your baseline is, no complaints today. It's a great day. But is that a safety net, or is that a good way to let people in?
For me, it's definitely that initial safety net. I will be honest. I understand that. I know that it's my go-to. And I think it's to gauge the pace of the call, or the tone of the call first. Because if somebody's like, hey, Sarah, how are you? And I'm like, well, my toilet just, whatever. That sets the tone of a call that maybe isn't right for that call, right? So yeah, I think it sets the tone a little bit, or at least allows you to get into the call before you know where somebody else is at. And sometimes I like I said, I worry about taking over. And so I do have a lot of good stories, and this isn't bragging, but just in the last couple of weeks, I've had 2 people that we've went out to meals with and hung out with literally in person, that have told me, oh my gosh, you have such good stories. And I'm like, okay, right? Like, I don't know what to say to that. And by the way, I wasn't even telling like a super exciting story that it was a normal story in my opinion. But I think sometimes we don't realize that people actually want to hear the things that are happening to someone else. And maybe it isn't that one-upping factor, right? Because that's what we were talking about, concerts. And I just, I can't remember how it came up, but I was like, yeah, I went to 17 Tim McGraw concerts in 1 year. And somebody was like, what? I need that story. And I'm like, oh, well, it's a long story because 17 concerts. There's lots, right? We're not doing that today at a restaurant and, on a Saturday night. But I felt like immediately, like it was an offhand comment, valid and true, but like, just like, oh, well, I've been to 17 Tim McGraw concerts. And immediately I felt like I just one-upped there. Oh, I went to my favorite concert. and oh, that was what it was. What was the best concert you ever went to? And I'm like, I don't know. And so I was like, well, the most concerts I've ever been to is this. And it felt like I was one-upping, right? Because then I was telling the story and I kind of took over the table for 10 minutes. And I don't know. I feel like I need to go to therapy for this.
Well, I think as somebody who sits with you in a live, moving, working space consistently, it's always good because you're always filling a void that sometimes shows up. And it's not you are like, oh, there's a void and I'm going to say something. There's conversation and your experience adds to the situation. And I think that that goes along the lines of what we're talking about of like, I don't talk about me getting my doctorate. I don't, we don't talk about what our levels of educations are. We don't, there's different things that we all keep to ourselves. But the level of experience, we were talking a few weeks ago where when you work with people and they belittle you because you don't have that experience, right? Or you don't have those worked hours, when we're not able to talk about our experiences and exchange those conversations in a safe space, then everybody is kept at different levels, as well as maybe idealized sometimes because they're not sharing as much. And so you're like, well, what are you hiding, right? What do you've got over there? And so I do think that there is that differential of my experience adds to the conversation. My experience creates more conversation because Sarah,
Right.
half of your stories, there's like 6 other subreddits to it, not to go back to subreddit, but there are.
It's the word of the day. It's the word of the day.
Yeah. And so we're able to have more conversations and we're able to expand and people are able to take that experience and then share their experience. And so I personally think it's great. I'm we've talked about my mental health on here. We've talked about all kinds of things. I'm the biggest open book on the planet. I don't know how to shut up. And it can be a stranger, it can be somebody I've known for years. I'll tell you the same. You ask me a question, I'll tell you the same thing over and over. But it's detrimental and it's a safe space depending on where you're at. And there is a spectrum for sure.
Yes. So I think my takeaway from this is, or not my takeaway, what I think people should take away is find the places that you feel comfortable to tell all the stories to, right? And don't be afraid to find those people online. And some of the people that know so many of my stories, I've never even met in person. And if you're watching this far, you probably know Brittany and I, and you know that we have never been in the same room with each other. And we have known each other for, am I saying 3 years or is it more than that now?
I think we're almost on to 4. We got to be on to 4.
Okay. We should go look somewhere when we first connected. Yeah. But yeah, find those places, and find the people that you can say more than, I'm okay today, or, whatever the wording is. Find those people that you're all right with starting a conversation. Oh my God, my toilet just exploded. And that's why I was late for the call, right? Find if you're working with people or engaging with people that you can't say the normal life things to, I'm not entirely sure they're the people that you're going to build long-term collaborations or partnerships with. I'm not saying they're not going to buy your stuff. I'm not saying they can't be a client. I'm not saying any of that, but are they really going to be a partner or a collaborator moving forward if you can't be a little bit of yourself when you're engaging with them?
Exactly. And I think that also goes into that space of April 12th, 2023.
Okay. So a little over 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that goes into that space though of what are you building, right? That foundation that you're building, that. And when you're talking to people, there are people who are like just your social media people. So maybe they just need to know that. But if they're your social media people, they need to know a little bit more about you because they have to represent you, right?
Right.
If they're your accountant, they know everything about you. And you didn't have to tell them anything.
And if they don't, you're lying to your accountant. So
Yeah,
make sure that you
exactly.
give them everything.
So really, I get it. There's places and there's different ways, but to make your day a day where you don't have to hide and
Mhm.
where you can feel like you had a conversation of your true self, do that. Be at a level of your comfort. And some people aren't comfortable sharing everything, but that go to therapy. go, go to therapy.
That should be
If
how we
you're
end all of our talks. If
yeah,
you haven't thought about it, go to therapy.
right. If you're an oversharer or undersharer, go to therapy because there is an in between.
If you're a human and have never been to therapy, go to therapy. That should be the rule right there. Are you a human? Yes. Have you ever been to therapy? No. Go to therapy. It should be just
And when's the last time? Because
right. If it's been more than 6 months, you probably need therapy again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
We're being stupid. We're saying everyone has something they should talk to people about. And if you don't have a person in your life that's able to help you walk through that, find somebody that can.
Make connections.
Yeah.
In business, in work, make connections. It's really important. And hold your ground. That's what's important, is holding your ground and being able to make those connections. But don't feel, you should never be sorry for what you said, right? Unless you're like hurting somebody. I'm just saying, like, when you're
Right. If
being
what you said
honest.
is an ism, it was
Yeah.
bad. But other than that, you should not be afraid of what you're saying.
I was like, wait, hold on.
Right. Well, this is like earlier when I was like, well, there's nothing wrong with being an alcoholic. Well, there is. But if you're a recovering one, you're fine. Don't be afraid as long as whatever you're saying is not an ism.
Yeah, exactly. So we love all of you, and we're very grateful that you guys watch us. And Sarah and I come up with topics all the time. If you have some for us, throw them in the comments so that we can
If you just
chat.
want our opinion on something. What?
Oh my goodness. Last week, just so everybody knows, last week, Dominic, who Sarah always is like, hey, if you're watching, when you watch this, tell us. Dominic made the most beautiful post off of last week.
Yes, I saw that. I was tagged in it.
And I would be remiss if I did not say that it was a beautiful post. And so if you guys missed last week, we were talking about experiences. And Dominic took that to the next level of his everyday coffee is an experience for himself. And how sometimes we take those things for granted, right? And so people are like, oh, you spend $5 on your coffee every day. Yeah, I kind of do. I get out of my house. I get out of my comfort zone. I engage with people. I engage with the world, and I see the sun. There's there's people I text. I'm like, it's beautiful outside, and they're like, oh, I didn't look yet because I live in Louisiana and nobody wants to go outside. So
well, bugs will carry you away. Like you have to like take a knife out with you to like get the mosquitoes.
I had a spider the size of my hand in my house the other day.
Okay. Well, again, talking about Dom, he can relate. He lives in Australia. The spiders over there are the size of your hand.
Yeah. So, but all of those things, let us know what you guys think, because we love getting some feedback. And that was a beautiful, thank you, Dom, because that was a beautiful message. And thanks for tagging us and letting us know. And yeah.
It was. All right. Any last thoughts?
Nope. I am Brittany with BizStorming, and that is Sarah. She's going to tell you who she is.
I am Sarah with Off the Beaten Path Consulting, so feel free to check me out. This is live a few places. Brittany's is live a few places. She actually puts her crap over there in the chat section.
All of that stuff is so out of date.
I don't. Your website still exists, so
that one does exist, but the Skylar Network is so out of date.
Okay, well, don't go to the Skylar Network. Look at the rest of it. But yeah, everybody have a good week. We will see you next Wednesday. Next Wednesday, though, really quick before we go, will be the one before the 4th of July. It'll be July 1, and the 4th is on Saturday. So I had to look at a calendar. That's what I was looking at. So maybe I don't necessarily want to get political like with 4th of July or whatever, but I think let's talk about independence and what that looks like with your life and your business.
Yeah, I love that idea. Independence sounds phenomenal. So I am down for that.
All right. See you later, everybody.
Have a great
One, two, 1, 2, need my attitude. 3, 4, 3, 4, check my latitude. I like that.